kuambia watu ati wewe ukicheza hapa utaona. Hapana. Kenya ni yetu yote.
That we must be careful with our language. We must be careful with what we say, because we are a national party that unites the entirety of the people of Kenya.
Well, it seems to be the season when politicians are falling on their tongues in droves. The DPP, NCIC and the police are almost having to work overtime to keep hate speech on check or in check and suspects in handcuffs. Well, first it was Meru Senator Mithika Linturi, whose madoa-doa utterance consigned him to police cells, and later the dock. Then Kitutu Chacha South MP Richard Onyonka, who presented himself to the police. And now that familiar notice from the DPP has been directed the police towards the path of Kericho Senator Aaron Cheriot. On the program this evening, we want to assess the law and the tongues of politicians. And joining us for that is Homa Bay Senator Moses Kajwang, who's here with us in studio, together with the LSK President Nelson Harvey. 22422 is the SMS line. Hashtag is Newsnight. Keep sending in your questions and your comments as we engage in this debate. And before I fire any questions, let me begin by wishing my guests a Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Happy New Year to you too.
To Newsnight. Mr. President, same to you as well. And Senator, give me a minute. Let me actually start with the LSK President there, who was actually in Eldoret this past weekend on Saturday when some of the statements were made. And I want to refer to a tweet that you posted. I believe it was around about the same day, Mr. President. And it read as follows: removing madoa-doa simply means voting 6-piece for all UDA candidates. And of course, our viewers can read the rest of that. I'm sure many of them have been able to take a look at it. Mr. President, I want to start by hearing from you. Do you have any reservations about that tweet 3 days on?
None whatsoever, simply because the question of hate speech is a legal question. And as day has succeeded night, Senator Mithika Linturi was arrested, detained unlawfully for 2 days, and when eventually he was arraigned in court today, the Director of Public Prosecution did not have any charges to proffer against him. It is my assertion, as it was on Saturday, that the Director of Public Prosecution must exercise caution, circumspection, and must act within the law when he deals with matters of hate speech. And I say that with profound authority because the National Cohesion and Integration Commission is the first port of call on matters of this kind. Where is the complainant? Has the commission dealt with the matter? Okay,
and with all due respect, let me stop you there before you begin to prosecute the matter. The party that you now say you support, UDA, has come out to apologize. Senator Linturi himself has come out to apologize. What I find interesting this evening is that, again, you have no qualms, and you have told us that you're stepping into a realm beyond the law, politics. And the question of the meaning of words outside of the law, is that not something that concerns you this evening?
No. You see, Wahiga Mwaura, often as a lawyer, you will meet a client who will tell you what happened. But what happened has legal implications. And my perception of this matter is based purely upon examination of the facts and the law. Yes, the UDA party has made a statement in which it has apologized for the misinterpretation of the statement by Senator Mithika Linturi. The UDA presidential candidate and the deputy president has taken a firm position that all of us must exercise caution in the manner in which we speak. A very noble position because it is incumbent upon him as the prospective president to be the unifying factor. But it must be understood the manner in which this matter was handled leaves so much to be decided. Why is it that Senator Mithika Linturi was seized and detained for 2 days, yet when it came to the case of Onyonka, he was given summons to appear? The law must be applied equally. Otherwise, it will end up being a tool of political vindication to settle score, to leverage, to ensure that there is no level playing field. That must be understood. But when I've said that, Kenya is a country governed by the rule of law. We appreciate the step that has been taken by the Director of Public Prosecution to initiate investigations, but we ask that the law be applied equally to everybody.
Okay, I have a few more questions, but let me allow the good senator to come in as well. Senator Moses Kajwang, thanks for joining us this evening. I don't know, let me get your immediate reaction to what has been a very tumultuous last couple of days for the country.
Thank you, Wahiga, and Happy New Year to you and to all our viewers. We thought that this could be the best of years, but it's turning out that it's possibly the worst of years when we start hearing some of the war drums and some of the narrative of divisiveness that is emerging so early in the year. Just like a carpenter believes that every problem will be solved by use of a hammer, lawyers sometimes think that every problem will be solved through legalese. What Senator Linturi said in Eldoret, and all of us were listened, and you know, there's nothing wrong in me, a member of Azimio, listening to the narrative coming out of Eldoret, because these are competitors. We want to listen to the alternative policy positions that they are espousing. We did not hear a single policy position espoused. The Eldoret rally, half of it was about Raila, Mkora, Mganga, Tapeli, and then the other half was ethnic incitement. It was references to things like Madoadoa. It was references to members of parliament who have been elected in that particular area, references to their ethnic extraction. And yet, you know, when you refer to people as coming from Punjab or people being Indians,
and we don't have to repeat.
This is a Kenyan.
Go ahead.
Yeah, remember, these are Kenyans, and they've been classified as a Kenyan tribe. We must be careful. It's not just about the legal interpretation of what has been said in public. What matters is how do Kenyans understand? And what matters is the history of the words that have been uttered. It is not a secret that in the post-election violence, the word Madoadoa was used with extremely negative connotations. It is in a report that is in the public domain, and even if the prosecution at the ICC was not successful, Akiumi and all those who did investigations and inquiries into the matters told us that it started with utterances such as those. And not too far away, in Rwanda, there were references to cockroaches. Now, perhaps in the statutes and in the penal code of Rwanda, it was not criminal to refer to somebody as cockroaches, but it led to thousands and thousands of people dead. It led to destruction of a country. We must be extremely careful. I am glad that Senator Linturi apologized, even though Harvey refuses to see the wrong that Senator Linturi committed for him to apologize. I listened to the Deputy President when he was Bomet, and he fell short of taking personal responsibility for the utterances. But at least he extended an apology on behalf of Senator Linturi. Wahiga, what worries many people is that perhaps this UDA, and I saw Harvey was wearing a UDA badge, and I jokingly told him that is a United Demagogues Association. If you distill their essence, you're going to find violence, you're going to find divisiveness.
Is that a fair statement to make, Senator
I'm saying
Kajwang?
if you distill their essence, you'll realize that some of those utterances by Senator Linturi are things that live deep in their heart. Whereas they can apologize using their mouths, but deep in their hearts, they still believe that Kenya should be partitioned in such a way that it is either you are with them or you are against them. Unfortunately, even though they brought this narrative of class and hustler versus the elite narrative. And that's why I call them demagogues, because if you look at the typical definition of demagogues, they will incite the populace, the masses against the elites. They will use serious oratory, like those ones of Harvey here, to incite the population, to divide them, and to promise everything to everybody, and to incite also violence in the fashion that we saw from Senator Linturi. Okay. I want to urge, because we still have a few months to the elections. I want to urge, because there are two things. One, we cannot discuss the merits or demerits of the cases that are in court. And indeed, Harvey says that Senator Linturi was seized, but Onyonka was summoned. Just this afternoon, I was talking to Senator Cheriot, who has also been summoned, in the same manner that Mheshimiwa Onyonka was summoned. Two wrongs cannot make a right. If indeed it is true that Senator Linturi was mishandled, Onyonka should not be mishandled so that you even the wrongs. But I think that the invitation of Onyonka and the intention of Senator Cheriot should help us to get a hygienic solution to the kind of mess that we saw in Eldoret and in Bomet.
President Harvey, even as you respond, I want to read a part of Linturi's statement. He said, and I quote, "It is true that words like this, whilst otherwise innocent and legitimate expressions, have in certain contexts come to be understood as representing inflammatory intent. This content did not occur to me while I was speaking." And some would say your tweet as well, even though you stick to the law, the country that we live in and the political arena that you want to step into in August, if the people of Westlands will listen to you, we'll see beyond the law, Mr. President. So again, I ask, any reservations about the comment you made and the tweet as well?
Wahiga, our adversaries have become hounds for bad news. And they do this with premeditation and deliberation. Why do they do that? Because on Saturday, we had a very wonderful rally in Eldoret when the Deputy President officially unveiled his presidential bid, a gathering of more than 40,000, a gathering which my colleagues here can only dream about. But what do they do in response? They want to pick what we have just referred to and propagate it. And they subjecting Mithika Linturi to the same head that they claim those who misinterpreted his statement have been subjected to. It is on that premise that we must undertake this discussion. And look, it is a high time we killed this hate narrative, in particular insofar as Senator Linturi is concerned, because it is being used for a particular purpose to distract us from the progressive movement that is UDA, from the gains that we are making, from the influence that we are having over the people.
Let me ask you this. So
and that is very fundamental.
You see no danger with politicians moving around the country uttering words like that? You see no danger at all?
Wahiga, I will repeat this. Kenya is a country governed by the rule of law. However, the law should not be used as a tool of oppression, as a tool of suppression. And it doesn't matter what the political connotation is. The law is the law. And the moment it is perceived that the Director of Public Prosecution, the Director of Criminal Investigations, is being used for a particular purpose, then it doesn't matter the threshold upon which those investigations began. And I don't want to be a prophet of doom. If at all there was any criminal action on the part of what happened. And we're not saying that politicians should have the permission to use inappropriate language. We are referring to a particular matter. Because it is my position, and it's a strong position that I hold, that the Director of Public Prosecution ought to have exercised caution, because he cannot act unless there is a complaint before him. He must give the investigative bodies, and in this particular case, it is the Commission, the right to do their work. But the moment he pinions the public, the moment our opponents take to that, and you see, this is how they did it. In fact, one of their key bloggers started a poll asking the question, who is funding ethnic violence-based campaigns? And you saw how it went. And the DPP has not taken action against this gentleman. And this gentleman is an ODM candidate, somebody who holds sway in the social media. It is for that reason that we must insist this narrative must end. It is gone to court. Let it be dealt in the manner in which it has to be dealt with.
Okay.
But going forward,
yes,
we must interrogate the legal position.
On a similar note, must politicians then watch what they say? Because what you're referring to are the consequences of a statement made at a rally. If the statement had not been made, we wouldn't be here having this conversation. Do you have a message to the political class as the NSK president, and many of whom are members of your council?
Indeed, that is an appropriate question. Politicians must watch the manner in which they speak. And we need to address all the politicians. The other day, we saw Junet Mohammed tell people in Kibera, mkiona hawa jamaa wakikuja hapa, muwachome na moto. We saw the other day, Kimemia say, tutaki madoadoa sehemu ya Jubilee. We saw the other day, Raila Amolo Odinga utter the same word. So let's contextualize this issue. And the moment we contextualize it, we'll get a proper perspective. And I must insist, this issue has been taken out of proportion to distract us from the progress that the UDA party has made, from the progress that the Deputy President William Samoei Ruto has made, insofar as the economic model which we ascribe to, bottom up, is gaining traction.
I'll be waiting to hear from you a bit about that as well. But Senator, come in, blown out of proportion is what the LSK president feels. Is the discussion that we're having this evening?
Well, I think it's a very disingenuous argument that then Kimemia should be arrested for saying Madoadoa, but Linturi should not be arrested for saying Madoadoa. It's a contradiction, absolute contradiction. If we were to wait for people to die before action can be taken, there will be an element of responsibility on public and state officers that have been given that job of ensuring that we have one united Kenya. And, you know, Harvey, as a very respected lawyer and a respected political player, if there was an ODM blogger, or as you've said, who did things that in your view amounted to hate speech, or in your view amounted to criminality under the NCIC Act, then why haven't you, made a report so that the DPP can be moved to, order investigations? Wahiga, nations fail because of very small things. Nations fail if people cannot agree to live together. Look at Ethiopia, and I like using Ethiopia as an example. Ethiopia had one of the fastest growing economies. When you compared Ethiopia and Kenya side by side, we knew that in the next 5 years, Ethiopia was going to overtake Kenya. The manner in which its economy was growing, the manner in which it was investing in infrastructure, the manner in which it went to the logistics sector. Safaricom went into Ethiopia. The share price of Safaricom went up because people looked at Ethiopia as the growth frontier for Africa. What happened? Because these people could not be able to solve their ethnic differences, the Tigrayans marched on Addis Ababa and destroyed Ethiopia. Today, if you want to fly anywhere, previously Ethiopian Airline was an airline of choice. Even we Kenyans would choose Ethiopian Airlines over Kenya Airways. Today, no one is comfortable to fly through Bole, to fly through Addis Ababa. Why? Because the political class did not exercise hygiene in their politics. And as a result, despite wealth, despite all those positive economic indicators, the country almost disintegrated. It starts with utterances like Madoadoa. Kenya is a country where you cannot call anybody a genuine or the historical owner of the places where they stay. Those of us who come from the Nyanza part perhaps marched from Egypt and Sudan to settle there. There are those who marched from the Congo forest to settle there. Kenya is a nation that perhaps was defined by geography as per the aspirations of the colonialists who drew the borders of Kenya. We must learn to live together. And I am glad that out of Eldoret and out of Bomet and out of the activities of this week, the wolf that has been wearing a sheepskin has been exposed. The utterances of Senator Linturi, and by the way, Wahiga, I have worked with Senator Linturi for 3 years. He was my vice chair when I was the chair of the Public Accounts Committee. Mm-hmm. Under normal circumstances, Senator Linturi is a very decent man. In fact, back then, he was still a ranking member of Jubilee. When he went to UDA, he starts dreaming of other people as Madoadoa. There is some indoctrination that happens when these people go into UDA. And I just want to pray for Harvey, that he's not going to get into some cultish activities and cultish thinking. Because even this evening, you have challenged him. You have challenged him to state his position on whether he thinks Senator Linturi was wrong. He has just engaged in linguistic gymnastics. Linturi has acknowledged that he was wrong. The Deputy President has acknowledged that Linturi was wrong. I am not one of those who will spend the next 1 month telling the Deputy President to apologize. Apologize for what? He seems to believe in the things that Linturi said. What we need to pray for is that his heart should be changed so that he is not a vengeful, divisive...
What are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about the deputy president, who is the leader of the hustler nation.
Had any part in it. In fact,
there are people who have, I think, spent the last 2-3 days telling the deputy president to apologize. There are people who have said that he's the owner of the dog, and so he's the one who should be called to order. I don't want to take that line. I just want Kenyans to pray for the deputy president so that he can be less angry, so that he can be less vengeful, so that he can be less divisive. That is my prayer for the deputy president.
Political class collectively, I think, would be the question. I know we have some feedback. 22422 is the SMS line, and the hashtag is Newsnight. Let me allow President Harvey just to say one thing, then we can read some of your messages. I don't know if you have a response.
Now, if you listen to the conversation between President Barack Obama and Trevor Noah a few days before he left the White House, he said, because of his position as the President of the United States of America, he must hedge his language. He must take into account the rights of those people who are listening to him. And for that reason, he will adopt a language insofar as race is concerned that is appropriate. As we have spoken here, Wahiga, you've heard the word demagogue, you've heard the word cult, amongst many other words that are associated with this team. I can assure my colleague here that I'm fastidious, not only in my manner of presentation, but also in my manner of communication. And I think that is a matter of public notoriety. And this is a virtue that prevails amongst the rank of UDA. For instance, when we were in Eldoret, you saw the eloquence with which Anne Waiguru spoke, Ketu Waruguru, Alice Wahome, Aisha Jumwa, Susan Kihika, Boss Sholei. Do you find these people in Odium? You won't find them. And this explains why they have taken a deliberate move to castigate, to denigrate, especially the women in UDA. You've seen that particular blogger I've mentioned. Every day he talks about room 350. What does he mean? That these women do not have capacity to lead? You see, it must be perceived from this context. And if my colleague and his team did not learn communication skills, it's a high time they did. Because, as I've said, they are fanning a fire that ought not to be there. It's as simple as that. Let them concentrate on what agenda they have for the people of Kenya. Because they have none. If they had any, they will have responded chapter by verse to what about 150 of us said in Eldoret on that day. They have nothing in response. They can only cling on this narrative that they're spewing around. But because of my civility, I don't want to call it shenanigans. But in actual fact, these are shenanigans.
Which makes me wonder, Mr. President, did you attend Saturday's rally in your capacity as an aspirant, the president of the LSK, a senior lawyer? Help clarify that. A few people have been asking that question.
Wahiga, and many Kenyans must understand this. The leadership class we have in Kenya does not descend from heaven, come on earth, and get elected. It is in our midst, you understand. I should not be vilified or castigated for being a member of the UDA. It is my political right given under the Constitution. And I'm not the first one. Honorable Paul Kibugi Mwite was the chairman of the Law Society of Kenya and at the same time the vice president of Ford. You see, we're not inventing
So for those who are worried, you are now divided. 1 minute you're defending clans, the other minute you're in UDA colors. Where are your priorities?
I'm versatile and multifaceted. And if you are to check my track record insofar as what I do in court is concerned, excellent. If you are to check my track record insofar as my leadership is concerned, excellent. Why do you expect me to act otherwise in the political arena? I've told you it won't change, and it is now manifest.
Senator, I'm sure you want to say something, but let me read some tweets here. Here's what we have. 22422 is the SMS line. Hashtag Newsnight. What a way to start Newsnight. Although we had a show last week, but of course, really get into a debate this evening. Youngblood says, they are sure there are no consequences. That's why small cash bails and bonds and a night in posh police cells won't deter them from reckless utterances. Blacklist them and see, none will tell them how to speak. So I think they're calling for greater consequences for our leaders and how they speak on political platforms. Engineer Lazaro Kanyambok, you say Parliament should enact tough laws that prevent inciters and warmongers from vying. That's the only way of ensuring elections will be free from tribal clashes. Scared politicians often using violence to scare away rival supporters. Okay, Kariz, in Harvey's opinion, how does the law cater for those who incur the consequences of such statements, some of whom are 6 feet under? Okay, I'll get a chance to hear from him on that. Nyamogi Gogni, you say political loose tongues in an electioneering period must never be taken lightly because they are the main causes of deadly electoral violence before, during, and after the polls. Let the law favor none for the sake of peaceful 2022 polls. All right, we have one or two more. Being Charlie, you say it's very disappointing that highly educated and widely traveled individuals are at the forefront of loose speech. All right, at Wanjiros, you say the tongue is like a lion. If let loose, it wounds and can wound deep. No matter political divide, political party bosses must condemn hate speech. For political mileage, politicians shouldn't open up political scars or let their tongues and their heart outrace their brains. All right, and Emoni Gideon, you say, how will it work if the judicial sector acts as an anti-law against the government? They're given culprits, they release them the following day or take centuries without delivering the verdict. Politicians know that nothing will happen to them. I think we have one more, two more. Okay, Frederick Okango, you say without prejudice, this is the Secretary General of KANU, I believe. Without prejudice, we must promote tolerance, understanding, and acceptance of diversity in all aspects of life, encourage full participation by all ethnic communities in social, economic, cultural, and political life of other communities. Okay, Okelo Mwalimu, you say politicians, very interesting mammals. You close for them one door, they invent another one. Now that they know that they are on the radar of NCIC for propagating hate speech, they'll find alternative routes like propaganda. Gashuhi Gadago, you say peace is so sweet. Let our leaders not divide us and breach the prevailing peace. However, let the whip on hate speech be fair. Also, a message here from Honorable Moses Kuria, who's watching us, I believe, from outside the country. He says, there is no point charging politicians because the High Court declared Section 96 of the Criminal Procedure Code, which is incitement to violence and disobedience to the law, unconstitutional, and that ruling still stands. The only punishment that the politicians suffer is pre-plea detention and higher bail terms. He then says that as a reformed ranking member of that ignominious club who had charges in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, all acquitted, I can only say that the ultimate solution is self-regulation among the political class. This is Honorable Moses Kuria I'm talking about, and adherence to a code of conduct. The Gatundu South Member of Parliament then goes on to say, I will be starting peer-to-peer coaching lessons to those willing to reform like I did when I return to Kenya. Moses Kuria says he's starting peer-to-peer coaching lessons for the political class. He says he's learned his lesson. I don't know if others have. Senator, go ahead. I know you've been waiting.
Well, I don't necessarily want to respond to Harvey, but the feedback on Twitter has just summarized the thoughts of Kenyans. We must accept that as politicians, we have played the wrong role in not uniting the nation, but in dividing the nation. And that is why, Waiga, our agenda on the Azimio side is to first unite the country. Because we believe that even if you are to put food on the table, even if you are going to put cash in people's pocket, but there is no cohesion, a Kikuyu and a Kalenjin cannot live side by side. A Luo and a Kisi cannot live side by side. As long as we still look at each other as Kisi, Luya, Arab, and Indian, that food on the table will not satisfy us. That money in the pocket will not be there sustainably. And that is why, in our hierarchy of policies, at the top of it is national unity. After that, we go to economic prosperity. And after that, we go to social justice. Harvey said that we should be responding to the things that were said in Eldoret. Waiga, there is nothing to respond to. 96% of the speakers were chanting Harambee and UDA, and others were calling Raila Amganga, and that script has been there.
You don't have to repeat what they said.
That script has been there. We don't waste time to respond to it. But there's one thing the Deputy President said that I agreed with, surprisingly. The Deputy President said that there is a shortage of fools in this country, and I agree with him absolutely. Hakuna wajinga Kenya hii. Because if Kenyans were fools,
your translation is upside down. Kenya haina upungufu wa wajinga.
There is no shortage. Okay, Kenya haina upungufu wa wajinga. Yeah. In other
words,
there's
no shortage of fools in Kenya.
There's a shortage. There's a scarcity of fools in Kenya. Now let me put it properly. If there was no shortage of fools in Kenya, then we would forget that the Deputy President has been in cabinet from the year 2002 to date, in the Moi government, in the Kibaki government, and as a Deputy President in the Uhuru government. All these things is talking about bottom up. Why didn't he espouse them when he was in office? If there was a shortage of fools in Kenya, then we would forget that the Deputy President was in charge of agriculture at a time when we had far-reaching reforms in the agriculture sector. If the issues is talking about around fertilizer prices and subsidies and National Cereals and Produce Board, can he give us a scorecard of his performance during that time? If there was a shortage of fools in this country, Wahiga, then we would forget that in terms of dispossession of persons like the late Muteshi, in terms of land grabbing, and in terms of corruption allegations, they've been swirling around his head.
Is it proper for you to allow the honourable
I'm talking about
senator
a matter
to continue spewing hate speech against the Deputy President?
This is not hate speech. This is a matter that
Senator.
This is the issue of Muteshi is a fact. I am not making it up. The issue of Western Hotel is still in the courts of law. Why is it that corruption cases keep swirling around the head of the Deputy President like flies?
Senator,
would follow?
let me ask you this.
Senator, if there was a shortage of fools in this country, Wahiga, we would not reflect on those things.
Let me ask you this briefly. How do we handle hate speech challenges moving forward? Because politicians will continue scapegoating and saying, it wasn't what I meant, etc. We need solutions. Where do we find solutions?
There is a process that is going on now. Senator Linturi, Senator Cheriot, and Honorable Onyonka are before the criminal justice system for their utterances. Let us allow them to do what they need to do. Moses Kuria has talked of certain sections of the law having been deemed unconstitutional. Those arguments will be presented before the courts of law. The issue of self-regulation by politicians has failed. Our politicians, unless you've got consequences, unless you show them consequences, unless you show them a sword, we've shown ourselves to be incapable of self-regulation. It took the threat of ICC. It took the threat of jail terms for Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto for them to be forced to work together to cobble up the Jubilee coalition. Yet, that also did not solve the problems that we had. The NCIC that has been bastardized over its inability to rein in these warmongers and hate mongers. One of the cardinal duties of the NCIC is to define and advocate a national identity and values. And I think there we have failed as a nation. We have failed to come up with a national identity. We have failed to come up with values where Kenyans look at themselves as Kenyans the same way Tanzanians look at themselves as Tanzanians. And that is a cardinal point in our Azimio la Umoja. And that's why I said building a nation is at the top of the hierarchy. In fact, you'd rather build a nation first instead of saying that let's make our people rich and build the nation later. We will go the Ethiopia way.
President Harv, even as you respond, we haven't had much of successful prosecution of cases of hate speech. In fact, the little research that I did, many cases have collapsed in court, and the only case that was successful, I think there's a university student who was jailed for, I think, about a year for advice for abuse on social media. What does that tell us about the threshold of the law on hate speech?
Now, the reason why we have continuously experienced handicaps in successful prosecution of hate speech is because often hate speech has been politicized. It has been weaponized. Why do I say so? I say so because of the following reasons. Hate speech is specifically defined under the Act. And in this particular case, is utterances or action that tend to indicate discrimination on ethnic basis, ethnicity. That is the fundamental issue. Now, what always happens is this. Whenever a particular person speaks in a way that may be perceived to be influential or divergent, and without proper oversight, investigative bodies kick in. Look at the case of Mithika Linturi, and permit me to repeat it. What did the Director of Public Prosecution say? Commence investigations and give me the file within 14 days. And here is where I agree to a very little extent with Dr. Fred Matiang'i. We have a problem in the police force. I think it's a problem of comprehension. What was difficult in that statement? Was it an order to arrest? No. So you arrest somebody, you unlawfully detain him, and then when you come to court, you have no charge. You have no witnesses. The case is dead on arrival. What should we do? Let's follow what the law says. A complaint must be lodged with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. It must be interrogated. Conciliation must be pursued. If it fails, then prosecution must ensue. And for you to bring a case that will succeed on prosecution, it must be a genuine case. You see, if I was to go and say, this guy has called me a demagogue, has called me a cultist, those are mere insults. And people with greater learning like myself are impervious to such insults. But some have what we call in law the egg skull susceptibility. They are susceptible. You understand? So the onus here rests on the National Cohesion and Integration Commission as well as the Director of Public Prosecution. The Director must stop being impetuous. He must be calm. He must be collected. He must let due process to be followed. Otherwise, you'll go up with a case like this one. Look, what is the fine for this offense? It's 1 million. On what basis will a magistrate give a suspect a cash bail of 2 million? You don't see something wrong here? There is a problem. And unless we solve this problem, we'll not find a solution.
Okay.
But fundamentally, I want to agree with Moses Kuria. Let us have a culture of civility. You understand? And this culture must be inculcated most fundamentally on these characters who call themselves Azimio la Umoja. Because you can't be calling yourself Azimio la Umoja, yet your main agenda is division. You understand? Castigating everybody. And that's what they've been doing. But we must do what we have to do.
Senator,
right now, we must appeal to the people of Kenya to see the propriety of the bottom-up economic model, the progress that we seek to bring. Otherwise, we'll remain in stagnation with old ideas, ideas that do not have transformation, the ones that our opponents want to espouse. And when they fail to make progress, they start looking for pumpkin seeds in the dung of the elephant. You won't find it. That is the problem.
Senator, as I react and think through what the SK President has just said, if you read the deeper meaning of what he's talking about, he's questioning whether the law is being used to suppress freedom of expression. Where are the boundaries? And there are Kenyans asking that this evening. Where are the boundaries on this?
First of all, pumpkin seeds on the dung of an elephant tend to thrive because of the manure that comes with it. And that's the kind of inflammatory remarks that we had from Eldoret. Those are the pumpkin seeds in the dung of the elephant, which, if not nipped early, can grow into a huge bush, can flourish like bushfire, can burn the country. So I think let's not trivialize some of those things. Let's not trivialize them at the expense of procedures and technicalities. Because in those 7 days that you are saying that let's still do investigations, what if the people of Uasin Gishu, in their fervent support and in that moment, decided to take action on the Madoadoas? Will you start saying that, no, we are still conducting investigations on Senator Linturi? In fact, and I've said it earlier, I am happy that Senator Linturi saw the folly of his actions and he put out an apology. That helps to nip that pumpkin seed from sprouting. It helps to stop the spread of that thinking that some people do not belong somewhere. The issues of hate speech, and I know that the definition in the NCIC Act has been problematic. In the last parliament, we used to interact a lot with Francis Ole Kaparo. We realized that the NCIC hate speech takes a lot of attention because it is political and it's glamorous. It captures the headlines. But the NCIC deals with a lot of other cohesion issues. If you go to northern Kenya, you'll find conflict perhaps between the Borana and other communities. If you go to perhaps northwestern Kenya, you'll find cattle rustling, which is as a result of ethnic animosity and ethnic differences. So there's a much bigger spectrum to issues of unity and the issues that divide us as a nation. But hate speech is purely the responsibility of politicians, because they are the ones who tend to get the platform and tend to get the visibility and tend to get the opportunity to say things that divide people. Self-regulation is fairly difficult, but I would perhaps want to propose that if a politician in any of the political formations finds himself before a court on allegations of incitement to violence or hate speech, perhaps we should also invoke our own party internal mechanisms to ensure that such persons are not granted certificates to run for elective positions. We have said that even in the past, that if you have candidates with dubious economic records or persons who are facing charges, and I know the lawyers will say you are innocent until proven guilty. But we've seen cases, Wahiga, where cases drag on for 5 years. So someone is voted out of office, he spends the next 5 years fighting battles in court, and those issues are not determined, and he gets re-elected again, and then it is a continuation. I think if we are going to talk of self-regulation, as Moses Kuria was talking about, we then must go back to our political parties and say that we shall have zero tolerance to warmongers, we shall have zero tolerance to accused or alleged thieves, and we shall have zero tolerance to those who have been accused or who have been alleged to have taken things that fall short of Chapter 6 of the Constitution.
President Harvey, I want to get a comment from you on agencies that, in a sense, all seem to react to public sentiment rather than their own volition when we hear of incidents like this. But we do know in the past, for example, the NCIC, in the run-up to the 2017 election, they told us that they have recorders that they'll use in rallies and that sort of thing to publicly catch perpetrators in the act and use that as evidence. The proof of that, however, has not been clear. Again, the independence of some of these agencies has been brought into question. I want to give you a chance to respond as to what you feel the NCIC can do better at a time like this.
Well, Higa Baura, the reason why some of us have decided to get into the legislature is so that we are able to make good laws. There is a problem here. Look at the manner of appointment of those commissioners. There's a credible merit in the fear that they are in office to serve a particular purpose. Because ideally, with an elaborate mechanism with which to perform their work, they ought to perform their work. So they need to be effective oversight in the manner in which the commissioners for this commission are appointed. Otherwise, if the appointments will be skewed on political alignments, you will have a situation whereby every time a speaker whose view appears unpalatable or whose views are divergent will be singled out for identification by the commission. And we have had a very good relationship with the Director of Public Prosecution. He does a very fantastic job. My only counsel to him is this: could he kindly read the act? The person supposed to investigate is the commission, not the National Police Service. You don't write your instructions to the National Police Service and you copy it to the commission. That's why you end up rendering the commission incapable of doing its work. Let the commission do its work. And you see, if due process is not followed, we are justified, and it is our responsibility as lawyers to demand that the law be followed. People will make noise. Let them make noise. But the point is this, and it must be understood by all Kenyans. Our responsibility as lawyers is not to participate in mob lynching, is to analyze the facts and the law. And I can tell you, I was in Eldoret. I perceived the facts. I've analyzed the law. And I will not change my position just because a mob is of a different persuasion. That is not my orientation as a lawyer. I must have a clear path upon which to make deliberate decisions. And here in UDA, we are proud because we have many lawyers of this persuasion. You understand? And when it comes to making those appointments for that commission, we look forward to a government that we're seeking to form, where this commission will be able to do its work, where the DPP will be able to do his work, where the DCI will be able to do them. Right now, they're not doing their work. They're receiving phone calls, go and arrest this one, go and arrest this one, detain this one. You see, if this trend persists, all the speakers who accompany the deputy president will be facing summons. With what result? Will not be able to sell our agenda. That is the intention. Let's not beat around the bush. That is the intention. So that we're not able to sell our agenda. So that we're not able to cover as much territory. Now that the ground is very receptive of what we're doing. And in a democratic state, such a situation must never prevail. And I will say this, and I will repeat, the DPP must work without direct or indirect control from somebody else. The DCI, even the courts, the magistrate who gave a cash bail of 2 million must explain why she gave a cash bail, which is even double the fine. It doesn't happen. That is abuse of office. And some of us are determined to call out these officers. Because if we don't, Kenya will plummet into destruction.
Senator, we do need to take that break, though. Come back and read a few tweets. The president there talking about what he'll do should he get into office. Is the road straightforward on the political front? As clear a path as he has espoused this evening?
Well, he got something extremely important that those of us who've studied even conflict in other areas, particularly the Rwanda situation, early warning systems. And the NCIC has been talking about it, but they've not demonstrated what they've rolled out for early warning and detection of violence. I know they've got a roadmap for a peaceful election, and they've got some document that they've posted online. But I'm just wondering, if there was a spontaneous reaction to the Madwakdoa comment, and people were getting uprooted, well, let's not gloss over these things. And we need to tell Kenyans the truth, the bare truth about our history. The bare truth about our history around the time we are talking about tribal clashes, areas like Molo, areas where all Kenyans had settled to practice agriculture and living together as brothers and sisters. And every time we have elections, they are reminded that they are Madwadoa, they should be going back home. Wahiga, I've got a significant population in my county, people who used to live and work in Naivasha. Some of them were working as fishermen because they took the skills they got from Lake Victoria. They went to Naivasha. It took only one night. It did not take 7 days. It did not take the police to complete investigations. It took only one night for them to be evicted from places that they had called home for generations. Some of them came back to Homa Bay. One of them is still alive, was almost burnt alive. He's got those scars on his body. It did not take those 7 days of investigation that Harvey is talking about for the church in Kiambaa to be burnt. It was a spontaneous eruption. When it comes to things that threaten the unity, that threaten the cohesion, that threaten the stability of this nation, all public and state officers who have been vested with that responsibility must take action to nip everything in the bud before it explodes. The Rwandese today, they regret that they wish they had taken action earlier. The United Nations, even if you read Kofi Annan's book, the regret that he has is that he wishes that the United Nations had taken action earlier instead of going through the bureaucracies and the technocrats that were existing in the UN system. They would have saved lives. We cannot put bureaucracy and technocracies in the path of national healing. We cannot allow a situation where the nation could implode at any moment And then we argue that someone should be given 7 days of investigation. I am proud of what the police, the NCIC, the DPP have done, because it has squeezed an apology from Senator Linturi. It has diffused a bomb that could have exploded. It has squeezed an apology from the Deputy President. Because you can imagine the situation. If the UDA soldiers kept defending Senator Linturi, the Madoa-Doa comments, that pumpkin seed in the dung of the elephant would have sprouted. And Wahiga, we have not dealt with those historical injustices. We thought that by folding URP and TNA to form Jubilee, we thought that by having William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta on the same table, we are going to address those long-standing grievances between these communities that have lived together but fight every time there is an election. We have a serious problem, and that problem will not be solved through the administrative and technocratic approaches that the lawyers are proposing. We must get political solutions. We must get early warning and detection systems. We must nip these issues in the bud before they explode and burn this country.
Okay, on that note, let's take a short break. When we come back, tough conversation that we're having this evening. 11 days into the new year, an election round the corner, but hate speech, political intolerance, unfortunately, is the discussion right now. And the question is, we cannot go back to where the country has been, but also the law must be followed. I like some of the messages that are coming in. One tweet that I want to read here. Somebody here says, ethnic profiling is dangerous, but skewed application of the law will not heal this country. So we must bear that in mind. Ethnic profiling, dangerous, but skewed application of the law will not heal this country as well. On that note, let's take a break. Come back, read a bit of your feedback, get final thoughts from my guests, helping us really understand what's happening in the country. We have the LSK President Nelson Harvey and the Senator from Homa Bay, Moses Kajwang. You're watching Newsnight. Stay with us. We'll be right back.